and hear the audio from people who are sharing the screens? Because I can record my audio, but I can't record anyone else's for some reason. Okay, great. Thank you, Petros. That's great. Hopefully it works out. So yeah, we're all here to see some awesome Noodle apps. So I'd like to leave the floor open to anybody who wants to give a demo of what they've been building with Noodle. And I hope we can do this thing kind of bi-monthly, like once every 2 weeks, maybe at different times if people have trouble getting here for this particular time. But just to, even if it's not a finished thing, just to see what people have been building with Noodle, and feeling like, you know, there's stuff happening in the community, feeling like the Noodle is a serious tool that's building serious projects. So whoever would like to present their app first, just stick up your hand. Petros is going first. Hold on. Invite to speak.
Yeah, can you hear me loud and clear? Can you hear me loud and clear? Yep.
You should be able to accept the invitation, I think. I'll send it again.
Can you hear me?
Are you having any issues, Petros, getting the audio to start?
Yeah.
Can't see an invite. It says invite to speak has been sent. Maybe check the requests panel at the side there or something like that. I don't know. Or the bottom, there should be a thing on the bottom that says something about speaking next to the microphone. Aha.
All right. So can you hear me now?
Yeah. Hey, Petros. How's it going?
Awesome. It's going right. Hi. Good.
Okay.
So I've got a camera on as well. And I should be sharing the screen as well, I guess. And,
yes, please.
Oh, wait, back. I don't understand how we can do like coding and stuff, but we're having a little bit of a difficult time working casting software. So everybody can see my screen. I'm just going to present like very small bits and pieces, not like, well, I'll just say a couple of words about the app I'm working on, which is for my company. So this is the app. It's generally a health and safety management system that I had developed previously in Microsoft Power Platform, and now I'm trying to develop my own for my own company. So it's really rudimentary for now. It's just testing out some screens. You can see the general idea is you've got lists on the left side and details on the right side. You click something and then you get a pop-up on the right side that you can edit and save. There's still a lot of work to be done, but there's a lot of stuff working, like filters, and the edit screens are also working. So I will be presenting just small pieces because the entire app is not really there yet, although there are a couple of stuff that I can just show you. Responsiveness is working, well, not bad. In any case, this is the tablet layout, and this is a mobile layout. And then we've got different type of menus popping up. This is everything was done with the media query tool, which it was really not that difficult to set it up. But this is not what I will be presenting for today because it's not all there. The first thing I want to show you is how I'm dealing with the creation of records, let's say forms. So this is the part of the app that I'm dealing with the roles because I needed a visual way to edit the roles, not directly from the MongoDB database. So when you click on a new, you obviously get a new form. And then if you click on an existing one, you get the details already loaded. So one of the things that I realized early on was that I wanted to work in a similar way that bubble does, where the object is loaded and then you can manipulate it. One issue that I had was how to save values on the temporarily on the object without actually modifying the object, which is a global object and can be reflected in other places of the app. So what I'm doing for every form is that I'm picking up the item ID and I am initializing the form with this ID. So what happens here is that I've created a component that can be fed the ID. Then the object is loaded into the parent object of the component. So essentially, all this does, it takes up an item ID and loads the object into the parent component object. So if you have a look here, for example, let's go and open something else up. So, no, I happen to open the same thing, I think. It's not updating. It's visually it's not updating, but what is happening is every time I'm clicking on some, so this is obviously some sort of bug or something. Every time I'm clicking on a new object, then this object is loaded into the component object. That means that I can manipulate the object before saving it into the database. So any changes that I do can be saved temporarily in the component object, and it can be fed back into my components. So for example, what I needed to do here was to load specific specific data when creating a new record, depending on the type. So this is the role system. If the role is of type class, then let me highlight this for you so you can see it. And this one as well. Right. So when I choose, for example, class, I want something specific to be loaded up, or better, team. So you can see this is loaded into memory of the component object as something temporary. It's fed into the roles. So what happens is that I can dynamically set my components to whatever I want. So for example, if I go with class, it's going to clear up. But if I go on team, it loads up in the values that I want into the component object and then into the component. Nothing is saved into the MongoDB database unless I click save. So that means I can manipulate everything without changing the global object. Essentially just creating a temporary object within the form. So this little piece I've created, and I'm using it in every single form. It has two modes. I'm either telling it I'm going to be using this form as a create form or an updated form. And initially I had tried to set up every single field separately, but then I realized I can use a loop. So I tell JavaScript to loop through the keys in the parent object and set everything to null. These are set manually for a specific case because they're not part of the object that is saved in MongoDB. And then I asked to change if there's any preloaded fields. I'll explain that a bit later. And then I set everything for the parent object. The only problem here was the ID is not actually picked up by looping the keys of the parent object, which is quite strange.
So Petros, I think we lost your.
Yep.
We lost your screen share.
Also screen share. Oh,
Right, there was a.
Go back. Yep. Is the screen showing now?
Hold on, my Discord is crapping out as well. Yeah, it's just it cut off there for a minute. I think there was like there was a bit of a connection problem there for a minute. And we missed a little bit there, just the last sort of 20 seconds or so.
Okay, fine. Very great. So essentially, the only problem that I had to face here was that if you loop through the keys of the parent object, for some reason, the ID key is not being retrieved. So you have to set it manually. In case where the component is doing the task of updating an object, that means the object is already existing. It's essentially just looping through the object itself, where I'm retrieving it, and creating the same keys in the parent object and assigning the values. And then in the end, it's also assigning the item ID separately so it's accessible more easily. So essentially, it's a nice little component that I'm using in every single form that can give me the flexibility to use with the component object instead of the object item, which is updated globally in Noodle. So just as a like,
Can I ask?
yeah,
Can I ask some questions about it, Petros? Because it's
yeah,
really
yeah, yeah, yeah.
interesting. Because I've seen what you've been doing with component objects, but a couple of questions just to sort of clear up, I think, the magic of component objects. Why did you choose to do JavaScript functions to set the component object values as opposed to just using this sort of standard Noodle nodes like set component object, set parent component object?
Because when you set a component object, you actually have to specify the fields. But
Yeah.
my initialized form component is data agnostic. It doesn't care what the object is, from what class. It doesn't matter what the object is. It can loop through the keys and set the component object without specifying it. So this component here, the initialized form component, is not only for the roles list, for the roles edit form, but for every single edit form in my app. So if I
Okay.
switch, for
Gotcha.
example, to the edit person list, let's head on to people here, and I click on a person here, you will see that I still have the same initialized form. And if I click on it, it's going to initialize the object into memory and bring me all of the data that I need. I couldn't do that with the Noodle nodes, as far as I know, anyways.
Yeah, sure. This is really like your mission to make everything as reusable as possible, really going down the true developer road of trying to make everything reusable and not wasting any code.
Yeah, yeah. It's well, it's not only wasting code; it's also the matter of getting it wrong and then trying to figure out what you did wrong and then fixing it for every single instance. Whereas this way, it takes a lot longer to build a component, but on the other hand, you do it once.
Yeah. Do you ever have any problems? One of the problems I have with component inputs, and it might just be component objects, sorry, and it might be my just not having had enough experience with them. I sometimes find that if there's like, if I reuse a component inside a repeater or something like inside another component, if there's this sort of nested components where there's parent component object, component object, where there's sometimes multiple component objects happening on the same page in different components, that's where I get kind of stuck because you can't target one specific component object.
No, I didn't even try to do that. It just felt really complicated. So what I
Mm.
did, just to give, just to show something here, what I try to do, if I need to pass information through a repeater, I will usually overload the objects with additional fields. So let me show you what I mean. So for example, I have a multi-choice chips component here, which essentially you can create, so you can select a number of records. Let me switch to something else though, which has more stuff to choose from there. And we are edit roles. So here, so this is a multi-selection component that you can select a lot of stuff in any case. So what I needed to do was find a way to tell the repeater object item that something has been selected. So the only way that I managed to do this was, so let's say that these are the objects. I overload them with more key value pairs than what's initially there. So essentially what's happening, the initial object is this along with the ID, and the rest is just overloaded. So that gives me the way to pass information from a repeater to the parent or vice versa without getting involved with component objects. So I try to avoid component objects too many layers, if you can understand what I mean, or even repeater objects.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was the object that you were overloading? Where did that appear?
So this
It was in the
is
fill.
This is a component that is being fed with several items, right?
Yeah.
And then these items, as soon as they are fed into the component, they are overloaded with more key values. So as soon as my array enters the component, the first thing that I do is add more key value pairs that I need to run this specific component. So all of this is additional key value pairs to the original array. So even though
Okay.
the items that go in are only have this. Okay, now it's actually, I'm sorry, am I looking at the wrong one? I'm looking at the wrong one, sorry. This is the one. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 key value pairs in the object. But once it's fed in the object, the first thing that I do is overload them with a couple of more key value pairs. So the actual items in the end are, they have all of this information. So I'm using the checked true to figure out what is the state of the of the selection. And then in the repeater object.
How do you then?
Sorry. Yeah.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
So what I want to say was that in the repeater object, which is in here actually, in the repeater object, which is this essentially, then I know that I have all of these overloaded values. So I know that I can choose the, I can bring in the label, the icon. I can even bring in, okay, the item ID. Let me remember here how it goes. Got the label, and then if it's checked or not, here. So because I'm propagating this key value pair checked yes or no, then just give me a second. I wasn't planning on presenting this. That's it got me a little bit
Sorry.
off guard. No, it's okay, but it got me a little bit off guard, so I'm delaying now. So in any case, the checked value is used. Oh, essentially here. It's being used to choose what type of to change the state, so I can change the look of the repeater item.
Okay. Just one last point then is how, so because this is really a good, like a very good way to do it, how do you then sort of, if you want those values to come out of that multi-check dropdown and go into whatever the objects you're working with at the higher level are, like the team here, for example, or the role, how do you pick up those? Do you just take the new array of objects with that overloaded data and then use those objects with their IDs to kind of save them into the
So essentially what happens is that since I have all of this information about the items that are being fed, and I know which ones are checked and which ones are not, I just pass them through a filter and I say, just return the ones that are, this is a filter. No, this is the search filter. I pass them through a filter and I tell the filter, return only the ones that are checked. So in the end, in order to manage it a little bit better, instead of just returning them, I assign them to the component object selection. And this is the component object this is the array that is being output. I have two stuff running at the same time. That's why it's not. So you can see the selection being output now. It's only an array of values and not the entire object. Sorry?
Yeah. Then you can pick that up on the outside of this component to save that to the role in the end when you finally save. So that selection is coming out. Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
Generally, if I'm talking, if I have a multi-selection component, the output is not going to be all of the objects. It's just going to be an array with the IDs. It saves data. It's a little bit easier to handle, and I've chosen this method everywhere, so I know that whatever I'm doing, I should always be using a list of an array, of IDs and nothing more. All right, so I don't know if you have something more you want to ask. I've already taken up a lot of time, I think.
Nice. It's
I'm
really
not.
nice. Sorry, I'll let you continue your presentation.
No, I'll talk about
No, it's okay. It's all good.
one more bit only. I'm not going to say the other bit. This is about permissions, and it was really complicated for me to set up this in a way that I can manage it and understand it and not have problems with it in the future. Actually, what we had done initially, Richard, because it's Richard who designed the initial way, but then it changed a little bit. I figured out a way to work with organizations. Let me have a look here. So my app generally uses organizations, which is essentially an account. So I have a client, for example. Let's say the client is, I don't know, even the Low Code Foundation, right? And then I have teams, which is specific teams in the company, like accounting, operations, etc. And the general idea was that teams can have their own records within the organization, and nobody else can actually access those records. So what I figured was that it's a very simple system, that everything has two ACLs only. So if we pick up an organization, for example, this is an organization. Starting the organization needs only one, itself, and then it's added in the users is the super admin is added in the users. Sorry, the admin is added in the users. So the organization only needs one. Then every team just needs two ACLs, the organization and itself. So essentially, every single role that is created only has two ACLs. It has its own ACL to be able to read itself, and then the organization on top of it. Now, I need to actually give you a whole diagram for this to understand what's happening. But what I wanted to present was not the way that I did it. That there is a way to do it with MongoDB. Is a little bit complicated. You have to be very careful when creating and deleting roles and assigning people into roles. But this way, I'm being a little bit cheap with assigning SELs, because then if I create a record, for example, let's go have a look at this record, then I only need two ACLs to define who the record belongs to, nothing more. Any record within the app is only defined by two ACLs, and then the rest is just being propagated through the roles. This means that it's more complicated setting up the system, but it's a lot easier, a lot more simple to add the records in and maintain them the way you want them to. I know I'm not actually presenting a lot of stuff here because it's quite complicated in any case. I'm just showing it to you in case somebody wants to ask more information or request like a diagram later on to replicate the structure, that I have something ready. I can finish it up and post it for you, or you can even DM me to ask how I did what. So I don't want to take more time. I think
John's asking.
Yep.
No, that's perfect. John's asking, is this how you achieve row level security?
Actually, yes. I'm actually not achieving row level security only. I'm achieving row level security and class level security. Let me bring this up. So one thing I didn't show was that I also changed the classes. Let me have a look, for example. I didn't like the fact that the security level of the class was either authenticated or public. So essentially, I'm adding the specific a class, two classes only in every, two roles in every class, which are named by itself: class person read write and class person read. And then within that role, I will add, let me find it. There you go. And within that role, I will add in the roles section, the teams that are allowed to read, write, or read within that class. So essentially what I can achieve is that I can tell the MongoDB that a team, let's say the team HR, let me find the team HR. team HR can access only these classes, and within them they can only read or read write their own records. So if I want to block a team from creating records in a class, I can do that with this system. And everything is segregated by the permissions that are given to the team. At any given time, I can give access from one team to another team. So if, for example, team operations should also be reading only the records created by HR, which kind of makes sense for some things like the personnel class, I'll just go to team HR and I will add in the roles the well, it's not added here. I will add in the roles the team operations. So that means that they can read only the records related to that. And obviously, I would block some elements in a different way, like say, separate them in a class that is not accessible by operations. It's still under progress, but I'm really close to finalizing the entire thing and making it into a corporate level permission system. Hope that answers kind of the question. Yep. Okay.
Nice. One question I had about the class level security was I think I misunderstood the, oh crap, my connection's really crapping out, I'm sorry. One thing I was wondering about class level security was it sounded like you were saying that you were assigning roles in a way that some of them are kind of blocked from seeing certain classes. I didn't quite understand how you achieved that.
Yeah, so for every single class in the database, I defined two roles. One is for read writing, and the other one is for read. So, and I removed the public and authenticated class level permissions. So, in order for a user or a team to be able to access the entire class, they have to be added in the class that is relevant to in the role that is relevant to the class. So that means I can specify exactly which classes are accessible by which people or teams, and by never accessing the backend and changing the class level permissions. So the class level permissions are essentially only changed once. Then the only thing I'm changing is what I'm adding in the roles, nothing more. So let's.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So this gives me the flexibility
that's a
to
really.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
That's a really extreme but like cool level of going into class level permissions and role level permissions. The fact of like having a role. I didn't ever think about having an actual role. Because I guess what you're doing is kind of you manually created the roles, you manually put them in the class level permissions because we don't have that access from the front end.
Mm-hmm.
And then because you have those in config, maybe you put them in your config as variables, then you can access those within the app and put people in, take them out of those roles, put teams
not
in,
even
take
actually,
teams out.
because they're only roles. They are only roles. I don't even need to do that. They're accessible directly from the app, depending if you have access to read the specific role. So, for example, I already have the class person read write here, right? So, if I needed to, this needs to be. Sorry, I'm in with the wrong account, so I can't actually do it. So let's go back here. So if I need to give access to a specific team for the specific class, I will just go through my interface that I made here, and I will tell it, you know what, we need to add the type team monolith HR, right? Should be included in the class person read write. So now team monolith HR will also be able to read write. Sorry, this is the wrong message. To be able to read write within the class person class. So the reason
That's
I did
really
this
nice.
was.
I mean, I guess.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, no, go ahead.
No, what I wanted to say was that at some point and on, when I'm done creating classes, I don't want to be accessing the backend. And the main reason I don't want to access the backend is because every time you're accessing the backend, you are using the master key. Not that there's a problem in using the master key, but essentially you can do anything you want without maintaining the business logic in relation to roles and permissions. So it means you have to think about how to set everything up. Whereas on the front end, you don't have to think. You just follow the process you set up, and then you cannot do anything different. There is business logic on the front end. There is no business logic on the back end. It's just you can do whatever you want. Actually, what I wanted to say to Richard, you had set up some flows for me to manage the roles that were using cloud functions that were in turn using the master key. But the one issue that I found was that I was using the master key. And I was essentially opening up the possibility of pulling in records that the specific user should not be accessing because they're using the cloud function to bring them in. So instead, I built this entire thing, and then the only thing that is accessible is whatever the user can access. So if I log out here and access again as a different user, that means it will bring in only everything that so you see here, for example, there is no super admin. We had the super admin before, and there was no super admin. And actually, if I even try to create an org, it's going to say I'm not allowed to create an org role. And the only thing I need to do here is just disable the save button, and I'm done. They would not be able to create it, even with the wrong permissions or even a class. I'm not allowed to create a class. I can do a team, for example.
Yeah. I think maybe it's me coming from the bubble world, I think, that caused this perception in my head that everything should be organized. Because privacy rules exist in Bubble, but they're not really strong. And I kind of came from this world of like, everything should be team belongs to org and user belongs to team. And so like, what teams can I see? Will then search for the teams where I belong to that team. And, even in LearnBook today, I did a video about it, a live today about it, where I had to go back through and fix all of that from these misconceptions that I had in starting LearnBook in Noodle, because the way that you've done it, Petros, basically means that when you want to show a list of assets to the user who's currently logged in, you literally just say query assets. And that's it.
Yeah.
And just what comes back is what they're allowed to see. You don't have to say query assets where the user equals whatever, because that just, as I guess any SQL developer would say, that leaves it open for query injections, where you could find a way to inject something into that query and have it return from the cloud function or from the query something that you're not allowed to see unless it's locked down with row level security.
Absolutely. I mean, could probably add a second level of security for the front end that actually does what you said, as in like query only for your account, for your organization, or for your team. But I'm pretty sure it's not really needed anymore, because you're only getting back what you're allowed to see. So one point you made is very correct. It simplifies every single query that I do, because I don't need to design a query. I just say query, and I'm done.
Yeah, and that's really powerful. What I would wonder is, and what would be interesting to test would be, because Sven had a question, I want to get to that as well, but the one thing that I remember, because in the good old days when I was working with Michael Tellhead on another project, he was the one who taught me all these things about ACL and how parse works with ACL. He was a big fan of parse. And one thing, when I showed him an app we were doing with this kind of level of nested roles, where role is within role is within role, and that means you get access to something. He was worried that parse on the back end might have some difficulty with running those kind of looping queries to say, like, if this user is in a role that's in a role that's in a role. Have you noticed any kind of slow response from the back end so far?
I haven't tested it because I think the volume of data is not enough in my app yet to test it. But actually, for most of the classes, there is no such sorry, for most of the records there is no such problem, because it's not a role within a role within a role. For example, if I go to let's see, a person here, never mind the top is wrong, but if I go to a person here, there is, what you said doesn't exist. There is no organization here, it's only the team. So if you are a user that you are part of any of the two, then you can access the record. It's a single level of permission. The additional part is for the class, but I think that's already embedded. This is a double level of permission, yeah, because it goes user, team, class. But that's the deepest level you can find. The only place it goes deeper is when you're trying to edit the permissions in the account section. And I don't really care, because it's not going to be accessible a lot. It doesn't matter if the performance is not good. It doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm not going to be accessing this every day or something. So the way I see it, it's not very complicated.
Yeah. Nice. Sven's question was, can you show how you've done the interface sliding in from the right when selecting a user?
When ooh. Okay.
The big secret. Show us the secret sauce.
Oh, no. It's not. It's like, I'm actually quite embarrassed about this. This is why I'm like going, ooh. So let's start with...
You're embarrassed, but it works. So
yeah, if it's stupid and it works, it's not stupid. That's what they say, I guess. But all right. So the whole app is divided into three panes. The first bit is the navigation rail. The second is the list pane, and then the details pane. The list pane is a page router. The details page is a component stack. Yay. So essentially what I had to do was I had to create a page for every single one of these. So let's navigate to the people page. Here, people. So this is a people page. The only thing that's present here is the details pane. So essentially, sorry, it's not supposed to be called details pane. Actually, it's supposed to be called list pane. Wrong message. It's the left pane. No, sorry, I said it correctly. It's the left pane. So what happens here is that when I choose a tab, for example, it will just push the component of the list of people or the list of trainings to the details pane. But that wasn't your question. The question was what happens with the list. So let's go to the people list. When you click on any item, it's going to use the media query to decide whether your target is this pane or this pane. The way it decides is if you're in the expanded layout, that means both panes are visible, then the target should be the right pane. If you're in the compact pane or the medium pane, your target should be the left pane because the right pane is not available anymore. So back to the question, how it's done, it's really simple. It just pretty much pushes a component. Oh, sorry, we're not in people. There, it pushes a component. I've just selected.
How did you get the sliding animation?
Oh, the sliding animation is part of the component. When you choose the pop-up left, you get a sliding animation. Here it is. Right. The target is right pane. The mode is push. The transition pop-up left 100%, no fading, and you get this result. Of course, there is a problem here. I don't know if you realized it. There is a serious problem that I haven't addressed yet, and I don't know how to address it, is that I have a big list.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Everything, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everything is at the component stack. Even if you put it there twice, it's going to go twice in the component stack. I haven't figured out a way to solve it yet, or rather, I haven't tackled it yet. And I'm going to need to do it. The second way to do it is just instead of push, replace. and end of story.
Yeah, see, I use replace all the time, and then you don't have that nice animation. That's why,
Ex-
like, the push is a really good idea, but then yeah, it's pushing it on top of each other every time.
there probably is a way to send the signal back to the pane. So I'm using a reusable component for this. The panes. No, sorry, this is actually wrong. So I could probably insert a signal somewhere to give it a specific command to pop out components from the stack. So if I do this a couple of times, let me remember where our pane is. Yep. No, sorry, the right pane is on the top level. There's only one. So if you see, you can see here, I have
Yeah.
all of these components. I can probably get a signal here that is sending, I don't know how, I haven't figured it out yet, the component stack to empty it and then push the component that I need. So that means we are using push, but we're actually always making sure that the stack is empty. Of course, there is a nice thing about this as well, that I do need push, because if I use the compact layout, that means if I open this, it should come on top, and when I press back, it should go back. So I do need the stack.
Yeah.
This is the left pane. Let me find the pane so you can see it. Right.
Guess it could be something
I'm
like
sorry,
when
stuck
you
here.
click and when you click and it opens, maybe you set a global variable, and the only way to close the right pane is to click something like back or X, and then that clears the global variable and so like when the global variable is true, like right pane visible is true, then you run an expression that says to pop that one and to push a new one or something every time it's true.
Probably. I think I tried doing something with the reset function of the component stack. So, but I don't even know if it worked. I think it didn't work correctly. So there is a reset thing here. But whenever I tried
Okay.
it didn't actually work. It didn't reset the stack, which I expected
Oh,
it to empty. So I'm still working on that. The
okay.
animation is nice,
No
but the
worries.
problem it creates is probably not worth the hassle
No, I
for
think it's nice
now.
though. There's a module somewhere in the history of Noodle somewhere. There's a module called Animate, and they took it away because it wasn't I don't know, wasn't maintained or something like that. But you can talk to old school noodlers like Kota. There is somewhere out there an Animate node where you can get like those sort of CSS animations like sliding in and stuff like that.
Well, I mean,
Um,
here you can see the animation, right?
yeah.
I mean, this is a transition and it's animated. So I don't know what the animate component did, but there's probably a lot you can do with transitions as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sven suggests using animate the width. So yeah,
yeah,
maybe you could do something where it does a transition for the width. That could be
yeah,
good.
exactly.
John had another question, which I think was very interesting because it's about your roles stuff. Are there any issues when you might have multiple secondary classes with read-write access to a primary class? Like if you allowed both the operations and accounting to have read-write to HR, for example.
Yeah, I can do that, but in that case, you would have more nested roles. And maybe performance would be affected. But the whole point of the way the roles are set up is to allow for this. So, if I wanted to give, I think I discussed this before. If I wanted to give write permission to the if I wanted to give read permission to the operations team for the HR records, I would come to Team Monolith HR, and in the roles, I would add the Team Monolith operations, and I would just add it there, and then they now have permissions. I don't know if that was
That's
a
good.
question.
John's typing, so we'll find out. But yeah, it's I think roles, and as you well know, roles and ACL is a very complex thing. Just I think the naming of the different bits is just wrong. Like roles within roles is just like way too hard to understand.
I want to
And the
clarify something on
difference
this.
between
I want to clarify something on
yeah.
this. I agree with you. It's actually very complicated, and I'm not claiming I have a good grasp on it. But when the user is in many different teams and even read write, that means when a record is created, I wouldn't know which roles to assign, which ACL to assign to that record. So essentially, one more thing that I didn't show was that each user has a team owner that is assigned to. So the owning team, the app needs to know what's your owning team. So maybe you do work for accounting and operations and HR, but if you are if you're creating records, then the default ACL of that record should come from your team owner. There are more stuff to put here. So, for example, if a person is added a training, that means the ACL of the training should probably match the ACL of the person. So that would mean I would use business logic, as in like front-end logic, to specify which ACL is assigned to the training because it actually has a parent object. It sounds complicated, but actually this entire thing I had replicated in the Microsoft Power Platform with its own system, in a system that I was using up until last August in the previous company that I was working for. And it did work in the exact same way. You could read and read write in a lot of teams, but you were always part of one team, as in like you had one team owner. And when you were creating records, the ACL was defined either from your team owner or from the parent record of the child record you're creating. I'm giving myself a headache here.
That's about right. Have you ever have you managed to avoid having to do any kind of cloud functions that read the ACL of existing records?
Actually, that read the ACL.
Yeah, there's like, because in some apps where I've worked on, the way that I've set it up, not fully understanding ACL at that time, meant that I had to to know if somebody was allowed to do something, I had to kind of read the ACL of a certain object to know if their role is in the ACL of the parent object. So like to do a cloud function that would return the actual array of ACL from a particular record.
I'm trying to remember. I had to bring in the related records, which again I did with the node, but you were asking about the ACL, not the related records. I think I haven't actually gotten so far. Maybe you've done something already in here and I don't remember it, but I haven't gotten as far as reading the ACL of the record. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I
I think
haven't
it was
gotten
when
as
I
far.
started out, and I was kind of, like I said, not understanding it fully, and you get to the point where you realize, oh, I actually need to update the ACL. Oh crap! Now I have to find because if you just do a set record properties node and you put an ACL rule in there, it's going to override all the ACL rules you already had. So either every time what ACL rules need to be in there, and it's quite fixed, which I think for your app it probably is, or you have to do a cloud function to return the array of ACL that's already there, and then push something into it, and then write it back to it again as like the ACL.
Actually, you know what? I think I'm actually solving some of the problems you mentioned, because in the way I'm setting up the app, every record should only have at a maximum 2 ACLs and nothing more.
Yeah.
So if it only has 2 ACLs, let's now go back to the person here. This is the maximum of ACLs that should exist on any record. So essentially, since every part of my app is set up only to assign 2 ACLs, I don't need to care what was the ACL already. I just need to know what is a role that I should be assigning in the ACL, and that's it. I haven't solved everything. I still have issues with this, but I think I'm going to be able to conclude it without actually reading the ACL.
Yeah, that's great. I mean,
I
that's
think
you'll see if you watch the Learnbook video that I recorded today, the work that I did with you and what you showed me from your app actually inspired me for going back and just redoing the whole permission system for Learnbook, because that whole, and you'll see that what I've done is basically what you showed me to do, which is creating those two read-only and read-write roles.
yeah.
So that's what I've started doing for all the levels that I have in Learnbook, because I have a lot of nested levels as well, but like doing it in that same way of giving everybody two roles is really clever.
The problem that I was facing and I wanted to avoid when reading the ACL using or reading anything using a cloud function was how to emulate using the cloud function as the logged in user. So I do want, sorry, let's say I do want to read the records from the database, but I only want to read the things I'm allowed to read as the user logged in. So that means I should try to find in the cloud function a way to emulate the specific user. I didn't even go that far. I just said, you know what, it sounds a bit dangerous, so I'm not going to deal with it for now. I'll only be retrieving what I'm allowed to retrieve as the logged in user by using the front end and not the cloud functions. I have used cloud
I think
functions
it
before.
gives a good example.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gives a good example of what you're saying about cloud functions, that they can be very powerful with the fact that they go around the ACL, but that also means with great power comes great responsibility. Like you shouldn't be returning, you should only return the minimum data, like the name of the company or something, but like not it, because in the end, if the person finds a way to inject something into that request of the cloud function, as long as it's only returning the string name of the organization, then they can't force the cloud function to send more data. It's only ever going to send the parameters that have been set to send. So it's just about using it really, really lightly and carefully.
And yeah, very carefully, just always consider that the cloud function is essentially the backdoor to your entire database. So just, be really careful with it, I guess.
That's it. Okay, we've hit the hour, and I think that was a fantastic presentation. Petros, thank you very much for that.
All right. Thank you.
Hopefully we can, hopefully you can fire the screen recording over to me if you don't mind, and I'll get it up on YouTube if you're okay with it being up online. If you need
I
credits.
did not prepare for YouTube, but yeah, sure. Are
No problem.
you're
It'll
going
be
to be
on Simple
doing the
Rakes,
editing?
you'll get credit.
I'll just send you the entire file and then you can do it however you want. Just one note here. I was actually under the impression that other people wanted to present a few small things. That's why I tried to conclude some of the things like faster. But maybe let's consider it for the next times, instead of having member present like a lot of things, and maybe you have a couple presenting smaller bits and pieces that may help people or not.
Sure.
That's a
I think
consideration.
maybe for next time I can try to canvass the community and see who wants to present what, and then we can kind of make like a playlist and say this week it's going to be Petros and John, and the next week it's going to be something like that.
Yeah. Sounds awesome.
Cool.
Right.
Great. Thanks again, Petros. It was a really cool presentation. I think everybody can really benefit from seeing such amazing ACL work.
Just a comment to John. John, if you think your stuff is rudimentary crap, you should really check out how my stuff are working. It's like literally stringing together a bunch of stuff and then it kind of magically works. I'm embarrassed for most of them. That's why I'm not sharing them with you guys yet.
Yeah. Everybody's embarrassed about their own work, but you just have to get in there and show it, and it'll be fine.
All right then.
Okay.
So it's leaving the stage.
Thanks a lot, guys. Yeah. See you in the next one. Thanks again, and take care, everybody.